Her hand trembled. She took out the silver bracelet from the drawer. It was 30 years old. The surface was worn. She stared at the bracelet for a long time. On the wall hung a black and white photo. And on the wrist of a 5-year-old child in the photo was the same bracelet. They were a pair. One was here, one was somewhere else. Winter wind blew outside the window. Tree branches swayed. She had to go to Seoul today. She put the bracelet in her bag. She didn't know why she was taking it. Her hand just moved. If today's story brought you even a little comfort, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and turning on notifications. Your support truly helps me continue sharing stories by your side. Wishing you nothing but happiness in the days ahead. She headed to the kitchen. Only the sound of slippers could be heard. She opened the refrigerator. 1 container of kimchi, 1 container of soybean paste. 3 or 4 eggs were all there was. She turned on the gas stove. Blue flames rose. The sound of boiling water filled the quiet kitchen. The rice was left over from yesterday. She opened the rice cooker lid and steam rose. She sat at the table. Only 1 chair was pulled out. The seat across from her was empty. She scooped up a spoonful of rice. She chewed slowly. She picked up some kimchi. She couldn't taste it, or perhaps she didn't try to taste it. A magpie flew past the window. It perched on a winter tree branch and flew away again. She finished eating and washed the dishes. The cold water numbed her hands. She scrubbed the dishes with a sponge. She shook off the water and placed them on the shelf. She wiped her hands and went to the living room. The calendar on the wall caught her eye. It was early December. There were no marks on the calendar. No appointments, no plans. She sat on the sofa. It was an old sofa. The springs creaked. A black and white photo lay on the coffee table. The frame's glass was clouded with dust. She wiped it with her sleeve. In the photo was a young child. She looked about 5 years old. On the child's wrist was a small bracelet. It was silver. She stared at the photo for a long time. 30 years have passed. She took a deep breath. She put the photo back down. She looked out the window. The sky was gray. It looked like it would snow. The trees were bare. Branches swayed in the wind. The bus stop was visible in the distance. Today was the day she was supposed to go to Seoul. Her son had said on the phone, "Mother, come this weekend." It was a brief statement. It seemed like his wife had told him to say it. But it was fine, if she could at least see her grandchildren's faces. 2 months had already passed since her last visit. Even then, she had returned after just 1 day. Her daughter-in-law's face had looked uncomfortable. She opened the closet. She took out outdoor clothes. It was a black jumper. Old but clean. She looked in the mirror. She had a lot of white hair. Deep wrinkles too. She brushed her hair back with her hand. She applied lipstick. A pale color. Her face in the mirror looked a bit brighter. She packed her bag. A small crossbody bag. She put in her wallet, phone, and handkerchief. Then she paused. The bracelet was on the table. The silver gleamed faintly. She picked up the bracelet and put it in her bag. She couldn't quite explain why she was taking it. She just felt she needed to. She opened the front door. Cold wind brushed her face. She locked the door. She walked down the alley. Fallen leaves rolled in the wind. Only the sound of footsteps could be heard. After passing a few houses, the bus stop appeared. She sat on the bench. The metal chair was cold. She waited for the bus. She put her hands in her pockets. She tapped her feet lightly. It was cold, but bearable. A bus appeared in the distance. It was yellow. It approached slowly. She got on the bus. She tapped her card. She went to the back. She sat by the window. The bus departed. The streets of Oo County passed by. A small supermarket, pharmacy, hardware store came into view. People were walking. Everyone looked busy. The bus turned onto the national highway. Rice fields spread out. The harvest was over. The ground was dark. Occasionally greenhouses appeared. The sky was still overcast. The sun was hidden behind the clouds. How cold will Seoul be? She touched the bracelet in her bag. It was cold and hard. The child's face from the photo came to mind. Round eyes, short hair, a bright smile. It had been spring then. Cherry blossoms were blooming. She had walked through the park holding the child's hand. She had bought the bracelet. The child had loved it. I wonder if she kept wearing that bracelet until the end. The scenery outside became blurry. not because of tears, just because her focus had blurred. She closed her eyes. She felt the bus vibrating. She heard the engine sound. Someone coughed. These were everyday sounds. About an hour passed. The bus arrived at the terminal. She got off. There were many people. She went to the express bus ticket office for Seoul. She stood in line. Young people stood in front of her. Everyone was looking at their phones. She bought a ticket. It was for the 1 p.m. bus. She went to the waiting room. She sat on a plastic chair. The TV was on. News was playing. The volume was low. People were indifferent. She placed the bag on her lap. She opened the zipper. The bracelet was visible. She didn't take it out. She just looked at it. The old silver gleamed faintly. She touched it lightly with her finger. I wonder if she's somewhere in Seoul. It was an absurd thought. 30 years had passed. Too long. The child would be an adult now. She'd be about 35. She couldn't remember the face. She'd forgotten the voice. Only the image from the photo remained. The bus departure announcement came on. She stood up. She picked up her bag and went to the platform. People lined up. She got on the bus. She sat in the back seat. She looked out the window. The terminal building slowly receded. They entered the highway. Cars passed quickly. The sky brightened a little. Sunlight leaked through the clouds. It wasn't warm. There was just light. She hugged her bag. The bracelet was inside. She couldn't feel the weight. But she knew it was there. That alone was enough. I hope today will be a good day. The bus headed toward Seoul. It kept going under the winter sky. She sat quietly looking out the window. Her hands rested on the bag. They didn't tremble. She was calm. She seemed to be waiting for something. She didn't know what. She was just waiting. The bus arrived at the terminal in northern Seoul. People stood up. The sound of people gathering their bags could be heard. She also slowly stood up. Her back was stiff. She had been sitting for 3 hours. She stepped into the aisle. She went down the stairs. Cold air came in from outside the terminal. She went to the taxi stand. The line was long. People were silent. Everyone looked tired. Her turn came. She got in a taxi. The driver asked, "Where to?" Sangmin-dong. She gave the address. The taxi departed. Seoul streets passed by the window. Tall buildings were packed together. There were many people. The cars stopped at every traffic light. It was different from Oo County. They drove for about 20 minutes. A familiar alley appeared. It was an apartment complex. An old building, 15 stories tall. The taxi stopped at the entrance. She paid the fare. She got out. She picked up her bag and walked. She came to the front entrance. She took the elevator. She pressed the button. It was the 7th floor. The elevator went up. She looked at her face reflected in the mirror. Her hair was disheveled. She tidied it with her hand. The floor indicator changed. The door opened. She walked down the hallway. The fluorescent light was white. Her footsteps echoed. She stood in front of 703. She pressed the doorbell. The bell rang inside. She waited for a moment. Footsteps approached. The door opened. It was her daughter-in-law. She was wearing an apron. Her expression was flat. "Mother, you're here." "Yes." Her daughter-in-law stepped aside. She went inside. She took off her shoes in the entrance. Slippers were placed there. Old ones. The same ones she had worn last time. She put her feet in. They were small. She entered the living room. The TV was on. News was playing. The sofa was visible. No one was there. Several plates were on the dining table. Empty ones. The air was warm. It seemed the boiler was on. "Please sit," her daughter-in-law said. She sat on the sofa. She placed the bag on her lap. Her daughter-in-law went to the kitchen. The sound of washing dishes could be heard. Water flowing, dishes clinking. She looked around the living room. A calendar hung on the wall. It was December. Several red days were visible. Through the window, another apartment was visible. They stood close together. The curtain was half drawn. No sunlight came in. Her daughter-in-law came out. She was holding a cup of water. She placed it on the table. "Have some water." "Thank you." Her daughter-in-law went back to the kitchen. She picked up the cup. It was lukewarm. She took a sip. Her throat was dry. She drank a bit more. She put the cup down. There were fingerprints on the table. "Where's Junho?" she asked. Her daughter-in-law looked up. "He said he's late from work." "I see." Her daughter-in-law went back to washing dishes without answering. The sound of water reached the living room. She sat quietly. The weather forecast was on TV. It said it would snow tomorrow. It said -3 degrees. After a while, her daughter-in-law took off her apron. She sat across from her on the sofa. She took out her phone. She looked at the screen. She touched the water cup. It was getting cold. Where are the children? They went to academy. They'll be back around 6. I see. Her daughter-in-law nodded. Her eyes were on the phone. Her finger scrolled the screen. She touched the bag handle. It was soft fabric. It was worn and pilled. What will you have for dinner? Her daughter-in-law asked. Her eyes were still on the phone. Anything simple is fine. I'll make stew. Okay. Her daughter-in-law stood up. She went to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. The sound of taking something out. She looked out the window. The sky was getting dark. The sun was setting. She looked at the clock. It was 5 o'clock. 1 hour until the grandchildren came. Her son would be later. She put the bag down beside her. She leaned back on the sofa. The backrest was hard. Her daughter-in-law was doing something in the kitchen. The sound of a cutting board could be heard. The sound of cutting. It was regular. She closed her eyes. She had slept on the bus but was tired. Her body felt heavy. How much time had passed? The sound of the front door opening was heard. She opened her eyes. Children's voices could be heard. 2 elementary school boys. They threw their bags down. They took off their shoes carelessly. Is Grandma here? The older child asked. Her daughter-in-law nodded. The children came to the living room. They saw her. They didn't greet her. They just passed by and went to their room. The sound of a door closing. Her daughter-in-law said nothing. She continued cooking. She sat quietly. Sounds came from the children's room. It sounded like a game. It was loud. Eat. Her daughter-in-law knocked on the door. There was no answer. Her daughter-in-law opened the door. I said eat. Just a bit more. It was the older child's voice. Her daughter-in-law sighed. She closed the door. She went to the table. She started setting the dishes. She stood up. Should I help? It's okay. Please sit. She sat down again. Her daughter-in-law set the table alone. The smell of stew wafted. It was soybean paste smell. Rice bowls were set. A few side dishes came out. Kimchi, rolled omelet, stir-fried anchovies. Simple. Please eat, her daughter-in-law said. She went to the table. She sat. Her daughter-in-law went to the children's room. She knocked on the door again. The children came out. They grumbled and sat at the table. They ate. It was quiet. No one spoke. Only the sound of spoons. The children ate quickly. They slurped the stew. They chewed rice. She ate slowly. The older child stood up first. He put his bowl in the sink. He went to his room. The younger child followed. Her daughter-in-law sighed again. She hadn't finished her rice. Her stomach wasn't full. She just didn't want to eat more. Did you finish? Her daughter-in-law asked. She nodded. She picked up her bowl and stood. She took it to the sink. Her daughter-in-law took it. I'll do the dishes. It's okay. Her daughter-in-law was firm. She returned to the living room. She sat on the sofa. The TV was still on. A drama was playing. She turned down the volume. It was past 8. Her son hadn't come yet. Her daughter-in-law finished washing dishes. She came to the living room and sat. She took out her phone again. She watched TV. She couldn't follow the content. She was just looking at the screen. You can use the room like before, her daughter-in-law said. Her eyes were on the phone. Thank you. She picked up her bag. She stood. She walked down the hallway. There was a small room. She opened the door. It was narrow. 1 bed, 1 closet was all. The window was small. She put her bag on the bed. She sat. The springs creaked. She looked out the window. The lights of the apartment across were visible. They were close. She drew the curtain. The room darkened. She turned on the light. It was fluorescent. The white light was dazzling. She squinted. She opened the bag zipper. She took out clothes. She hung them in the closet. She took out toiletries. She left the bracelet as it was. She lay on the bed. She looked at the ceiling. The wallpaper was old. Mold stains were visible. She could hear the boiler. It was a small sound. Sounds of her daughter-in-law walking in the hallway. The sound of a door closing. I won't see Junho today. She closed her eyes. Only sounds in the darkness. Sounds from the children's room, sounds from her daughter-in-law's room, sounds from next door. All were distant. close but distant. The third morning came. Faint light entered through the window. She woke up early. She hadn't slept well last night. The bed was uncomfortable. No, unfamiliar. She sat up. She looked at the clock. It was 6 o'clock. She didn't open the door. She waited for a moment. Sounds came from the hallway. Her daughter-in-law seemed to have woken up. The sound of flushing the toilet. Footsteps heading to the kitchen. She sat on the bed waiting. About 10 minutes passed. She carefully opened the door. She walked down the hallway. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. She was drinking coffee. She was looking at her phone. She didn't see her. She quietly sat on the sofa. Her daughter-in-law looked up. Their eyes met briefly. Her daughter-in-law looked at her phone again. She said nothing. She didn't speak either. Only the sound of the clock. The refrigerator hummed. Her daughter-in-law stood up. She put the cup in the sink. She went to the children's room. She knocked on the door. She woke the children. She came back to the kitchen. She started preparing breakfast. She sat on the sofa watching. She stood up. She went to the kitchen. She stood next to her daughter-in-law. Can I help? Her daughter-in-law paused briefly. She shook her head. It's okay. The rice bowls. I'll do it. Her daughter-in-law's voice was low, but firm. She stepped back. She returned to the living room. She sat on the sofa again. Her hands rested on her lap. She stayed still. The children came out. They sat at the table. Her daughter-in-law set the rice. She was called too. She went to the table. She sat. 4 people sat, but it was quiet. Only the sound of spoons. The older child stood up first. The younger child also stood. They grabbed their bags. They went to the entrance. They put on their shoes. The door opened. It closed. Only 2 remained. Her daughter-in-law cleared the dishes. She started washing. She remained seated. She didn't know if she should stand. She slowly stood. She went to the living room. She sat on the sofa. Her daughter-in-law finished washing. She went to her room. She changed clothes. She came out. She was wearing a coat. I'm going out. Okay. Her daughter-in-law left. The door closed. Footsteps faded. The elevator sound was heard. It became quiet. She was alone. She looked at the clock. It was 8:30. She stood up. She walked around the house. Living room, kitchen, hallway. She looked out the window. Cars passed by. People walked. Everyone was going somewhere. She went to the kitchen. She opened the cupboard. She took out a cup. She filled it with water. She drank. It was lukewarm. She looked at the sink. It was clean. Her daughter-in-law had wiped everything. There was nothing to do. She returned to the living room. She turned on the TV. News was on. The anchor was speaking. She turned down the volume. She couldn't follow the content. She just left it on. She just watched the screen. 9 o'clock came. 10 o'clock came. She sat on the sofa. Occasionally she stood and looked out the window. She sat again. Time passed slowly. The wall clock ticked. It was regular. Noon came. She wasn't hungry. She went to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. There were side dishes. There was rice. She didn't take them out. She closed the door. She only drank water. She went to her room. She sat on the bed. She looked at her bag. She didn't open it. She looked out the window. The sky was gray. The clouds were thick. It looked like it would snow. How long should I stay here? More time passed. It became 2 in the afternoon. The front door opened. She came out to the living room. It was her son. His tie was loose. He looked tired. Did you have lunch? Not yet. Her son went to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. He took out instant noodles. He boiled water in a pot. She sat at the table. Her son made the noodles. His back was turned. The noodles were ready. Her son poured them into a bowl. He placed it on the table. He started eating alone. He didn't look at her. The sound of slurping. He ate quickly. Is there a lot of work at the company? She asked. Her son nodded. A bit. It must be hard. It's okay. The conversation ended. Her son kept eating. She placed her hands on her lap. She sat still. Her son emptied the bowl. He stood up. He put the bowl in the sink. I have to go back. Okay. Her son retied his tie. He put on his shoes. He opened the door. He didn't look back. The door closed. She sat at the table. She looked at the empty bowl. A little noodle broth remained. She stood up. She cleared the bowl. She washed it. The water was cold. Her hands turned red. She wiped it with a dishcloth. She put it on the shelf. She left the kitchen. She went to the living room. She sat on the sofa. The TV was still on. A drama was playing. She turned up the volume a little. But she couldn't concentrate. Actors were talking. She didn't know what it was about. The afternoon darkened. The sun was setting. The living room grew dark. She didn't turn on the light. She just sat in the darkness. There was only the TV light. Blue light. 5 o'clock came. The children came back. It was noisy. They threw their bags. They went to their rooms. They closed the doors. Game sounds came. She sat on the sofa. She turned on the light. 6 o'clock came. Her daughter-in-law came back. She had been shopping. There were many plastic bags. She went to the kitchen. She put things in the refrigerator. She stood up. Should I help? It's okay. Her daughter-in-law didn't even look. She continued organizing. She stopped. She went back to the sofa. She sat. Dinner preparation started. The sound of cutting. The sound of boiling water. The ventilation fan ran. She watched TV. News was on. Weather forecast came on. It said it would snow tomorrow. 7 o'clock came. Dinner was ready. Her daughter-in-law called the children. The children came out. They sat at the table. She sat too. 4 people sat. Her son wasn't there. Where's Dad? The older child asked. Her daughter-in-law answered. He's late. The child nodded. He started eating. Her daughter-in-law ate too. She picked up her spoon. 4 ate, but there was no conversation. The children stood up first. They went to their rooms. Her daughter-in-law cleared the dishes. She remained seated. She stood up. She picked up her bowl. Her daughter-in-law said, "Leave it. It's okay. Leave it." Her voice was firm. She put down the bowl. She went to the living room. She sat on the sofa. The sound of her daughter-in-law washing dishes. Water sound, dishes clinking. Past 8 o'clock. Her daughter-in-law finished washing. She came to the living room. She sat on the sofa. She took out her phone. She sat far from her. Both were silent. 9 o'clock came. She stood up. I'm going to bed. Her daughter-in-law nodded. Her eyes were on the phone. She went to her room. She closed the door. She turned on the light. She sat on the bed. She looked out the window. The apartment across was visible. Lights were on in each window. People were visible. Families were visible. They were together. She was alone. She changed clothes. She lay on the bed. She turned off the light. It was dark. She closed her eyes. House sounds could be heard. Her daughter-in-law's footsteps, sounds from the children's rooms, boiler sounds. All were small, distant. This doesn't seem to be my place. The front door opened. Her son seemed to have returned. Footsteps sounded. Faint conversation with her daughter-in-law could be heard. The door closed. It became quiet. She lay in the darkness. With her eyes open. The 4th morning came. Light faintly entered through the window. She woke up at 6. She hadn't slept well last night either. She had looked at the ceiling for a long time. She sat up. She didn't open the door and waited. Sounds came from the hallway. Her daughter-in-law seemed to have woken up. The sound of the bathroom door opening, water flowing. She sat on the bed. About 10 minutes passed. She quietly opened the door. She walked down the hallway. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. She was making toast. The smell of burning butter. She sat on the sofa. Her daughter-in-law turned around. Their eyes met briefly. Her daughter-in-law flipped the toast again. Will you eat? Her daughter-in-law asked. Her eyes were on the toast. Yes. Her daughter-in-law took out a plate. She put the toast on it. She placed it on the table. She went to the table. She sat. Her daughter-in-law sat too. Each ate toast. Only the crunching sound. Are you going back to Oo County today? Her daughter-in-law asked. She asked while looking at the plate. Not yet. How long will you stay? Her voice was dry. She put down her toast. Her hand stopped. Just a few more days. Her daughter-in-law didn't answer. She kept eating toast. She stood up. She put the plate in the sink. She turned on the water. She sat at the table. She hadn't finished the toast. Her daughter-in-law went to her room. The sound of changing clothes. She came out. She gathered her bag. I'm going out. Okay. The door closed. She sat alone at the table. She looked at the remaining toast. It was getting cold. She touched it with her hand. It was hard. She picked up the plate and stood. She threw it in the trash. She went to the sink. She washed the dishes. The water was cold. Her hands turned red. She wiped them. She left the kitchen. She went to the living room. She sat on the sofa. The clock showed 8 o'clock. The day had started. It was a long day. She entered her room. She sat on the bed. She pulled her bag. She opened the zipper. She looked inside. The bracelet was visible between the clothes. The silver was faint. She reached out her hand. She didn't touch it. She just looked. Why did I bring this? She closed the zipper. She pushed the bag back. She looked out the window. The sky hung low. It looked like it would snow. Wind blew. Tree branches swayed. She came to the living room. She sat on the sofa. She turned on the TV. A morning program was on. It was a cooking program. A chef was making something. She watched, but she couldn't concentrate. Time passed. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. She sat on the sofa. Sometimes she stood and went to the bathroom. She drank water. She sat again. She looked out the window. People were walking. Cars passed by. Noon came. She wasn't hungry. She went to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. She looked at the side dishes. She looked at the rice. She closed the door. She only drank water. She washed the cup. She returned to the living room. The front door opened. She turned around. It was her son. He was holding a briefcase. He looked tired. Did you have lunch? Not yet. Her son went to the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator. He took something out. He put it in the microwave. She sat on the sofa. She didn't stand up. The microwave rang. Her son took it out. He sat at the table. He started eating alone. She stood up. She went to the table. She sat across from him. Are you busy? A bit. Is it hard? It's okay. Her son ate quickly. He kept his head down while eating. He didn't look at her. She placed her hands on her lap. She sat still. Junho. Her son looked up. He looked at her. Yes. Am I staying too long? Her son put down his spoon. He paused briefly. No. Mijang seems. Don't worry about it. Her son started eating again. The conversation ended. She couldn't ask more. Her son emptied the bowl. He stood up. He put the bowl in the sink. I have to go back. Okay. Her son picked up his briefcase. He put on his shoes. He opened the door. He didn't look back. The door closed. She sat at the table. She looked at the empty bowl. Moisture was drying. She stood up. She cleared the bowl. She washed it. She wiped it. She put it in place. She left the kitchen. She went to the living room. She sat on the sofa. The TV was still on. The afternoon darkened. The clouds thickened. The light weakened. The living room was dark. She turned on the light. White light spread. She sat on the sofa. She didn't move. Around 4 o'clock, snow began to fall. It was visible outside the window. Small snowflakes. They fell slowly. She went to the window. She touched the glass. It was cold. 5 o'clock came. The children came back. They came in brushing off snow. They threw their bags. They went to their rooms. They didn't look at her. They didn't greet her. The doors closed. 6 o'clock came. Her daughter-in-law came back. Snow was on her coat. She came in brushing it off. She went to the kitchen. She seemed to have shopped. The sound of plastic bags. She stood up. She went to the kitchen. Her daughter-in-law was putting things in the refrigerator. Should I help? Her daughter-in-law turned around. Her expression was blank. It's fine. I can. I said it's okay. Her voice was cold. She stepped back. Her daughter-in-law kept organizing. She stood there. Her daughter-in-law closed the refrigerator door. She turned. Their eyes met. Mother. Yes. Starting next week. Wouldn't it be better to stay at home? Her daughter-in-law's voice was low, but clear. Her hands trembled. She put them in her pockets. I will. Her daughter-in-law nodded. She started putting on an apron. She came to the living room. She sat on the sofa. She placed her hands on her lap. The trembling didn't stop. Dinner was ready. They sat at the table. 4 people sat. Her son wasn't there. They ate. It was quiet. No one spoke. Only the sound of spoons. She barely ate. Her throat was tight. It was hard to swallow. She put down her spoon. Her daughter-in-law looked. She said nothing. The meal ended. The children stood up first. Her daughter-in-law cleared the dishes. She remained seated. She stood up. She went to her room. She closed the door. She sat on the bed. She pulled her bag. She opened it. She took out the bracelet. She held it in her hand. It was cold. She held it for a long time. The silver gleamed faintly. I should go home. She looked out the window. Snow kept falling. It was piling up white. The street was quiet. Cars passed slowly. The lights were blurry. She looked out the window holding the bracelet. Snowflakes fell. They fell silently. The fifth morning came. She woke up early. 5:30. It was still dark. Streetlights were visible outside the window. The snow had stopped. It was piled up white. It was quiet. She got out of bed. She looked at her bag. The bracelet was inside. She had put it back last night. She closed the zipper. She looked out the window. The sky was gradually brightening. It was gray. She changed clothes. She opened the door. The hallway was quiet. Everyone was sleeping. She came to the living room. It was dark. She didn't turn on the light. She sat on the sofa. She only looked out the window. I should go out today. Time passed. 6 o'clock came. Sounds came from the hallway. Her daughter-in-law woke up. The sound of coming to the kitchen. The light turned on. Her daughter-in-law saw her. She looked surprised. You're up early. Yes. Her daughter-in-law opened the refrigerator. She took out milk. She put it in the microwave. She sat on the sofa. Her daughter-in-law looked at her phone. The microwave rang. She took out the milk. Will you go out today? Her daughter-in-law asked. Her eyes were on the cup. I might go out for a bit. Where? Just around the neighborhood. Her daughter-in-law nodded. She didn't ask more. She drank the milk. She sat quietly. The window was getting brighter. 7 o'clock came. The children woke up. They ate breakfast. She sat at the table too. She ate a little toast. The children went to school. Her daughter-in-law prepared. I'm going out. Okay. Her daughter-in-law left. The door closed. She was left alone. She stood up. She went to her room. She opened the closet. She took out her coat. It was black. She tried it on. She looked in the mirror. She packed her bag. She put in her wallet. She put in her phone. She put in her handkerchief. She left the bracelet as it was. She tried the bag. It was light. She looked in the mirror again. She combed her hair. She came to the living room. She looked at the clock. It was 8:30. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She put on her coat. She buttoned it. She wrapped a scarf. She stood at the door. Her hand touched the doorknob. She paused briefly. She looked back. The living room was visible. It was quiet. The TV was off. The sofa was empty. No one was there. She opened the door. She went to the hallway. She closed the door. She took the elevator. She went down to the first floor. She walked through the lobby. She passed the security office. She pushed the front door. She went outside. Cold wind blew. Her face was cold. She raised her scarf. She walked on the snow-covered path. Footprints were made. Black marks on the white ground. She walked slowly. She left the apartment complex. The main road was visible. Cars passed by. People were walking. Everyone looked busy. She stopped. She didn't know where to go. A bus stop was visible. She walked there. She sat on the bench. It was cold. She put her hands in her pockets. She looked at the bus route map. The letters were small. She couldn't see well. Where should I go? A bus came. The door opened. People got on. She didn't get on. The bus left. It became quiet again. A car passed. The smell of exhaust. She stood up. She walked down the street. Stores were visible. Bakery, pharmacy, convenience store. People came and went. She walked slowly. She looked at the shop windows. Mannequins stood. They wore winter clothes. A cafe was visible. A small cafe. Inside was visible through the glass window. It looked warm. She stopped. She pushed the door. A bell rang. She went inside. It was warm. The smell of coffee. There were a few tables. People were sitting. Someone looking at a laptop, someone reading a book, people talking. She went to the counter. A young woman stood there. She wore an apron. She smiled. Welcome. One Americano. Hot? Yes. The woman started making coffee. She stood next to the counter. She looked at the woman's hands. They moved quickly. There was something on her wrist. It looked like a bracelet. Her gaze stopped. It was silver. It looked old. The woman turned. She handed over the coffee. Here you are. She took out her card. She paid. She received the coffee. The woman smiled again. She went to a table. She sat by the window. She looked at the coffee. Steam rose. She took a sip. It was warm. It tasted bitter. She looked out the window. People passed by. Snow was melting. It was turning black. She looked at the counter again. The woman was serving another customer. The bracelet on her wrist was visible. It sparkled when she moved. She put down the coffee. She opened her bag. She looked inside. Wallet, phone, handkerchief. Below that was the bracelet. She didn't take it out. She just looked. The silver was faint. She closed the zipper. It seems similar. The woman was wiping the counter. She drank coffee. Slowly. She watched the woman. She looked to be in her mid-30s. Her hair was tied. Her face was bright. She finished the coffee. She picked up the cup and stood. She went to the counter. She put down the cup. It was good. Thank you. The woman smiled. She smiled a little too. She turned. She went to the door. She stopped before leaving. She turned back. The woman was washing dishes. The bracelet on her wrist shone. Maybe. She pushed the door and went out. The bell rang. Outside was still cold. She stood in front of the cafe. She looked inside through the glass. The woman was visible. She was smiling, talking to a customer. She walked slowly. She went to the bus stop. She sat on the bench. She put her hands in her pockets. She placed the bag on her lap. She touched inside. She felt the bracelet. It was hard. A bus came. She got on. She tapped her card. She sat in the back. She looked out the window. The cafe gradually receded. She hugged her bag. The bus ran. It returned to the apartment complex. She arrived home. She took the elevator. She got off on the 7th floor. She walked down the hallway. She stood at the door. She took out the key. She opened the door. She went inside. It was quiet. No one was there. She took off her shoes. She took off her coat. She went to her room. She put down her bag. She sat on the bed. She looked out the window. The sky was bright. Clouds were flowing. She opened her bag. She took out the bracelet. She held it in her hand. She held it up to the light. The silver sparkled. She touched the surface. It was cold. It was old. I should go again tomorrow. She put the bracelet back in the bag. She didn't close the zipper. She left it half open, so she could take it out anytime. She looked out the window. She looked toward where the cafe was. It was far, but she could go again. She sat with the bag beside her. She sat quietly. The 6th morning came. She woke up early. The window was bright. The sun was up. A lot of snow had melted. The road was wet. The sky was clear. She changed clothes. She looked in the mirror. She combed her hair. She applied lipstick. Pale color. She took out her coat. She put it on. She packed her bag. The bracelet was still inside. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. She was drinking coffee. She saw her. Going out again? Yes. Her daughter-in-law didn't ask more. She looked at her phone. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She opened the door. She left. She took the elevator. She went down to the 1st floor. She went outside. The air was cold, but warmer than yesterday. There was sunlight. It touched her face. She went to the bus stop. She took the bus. She sat by the window. It was the road she went yesterday. Familiar. Stores passed by. People walked. She got off in front of the cafe. She walked. Inside was visible through the glass. There were people. Not many. She pushed the door. The bell rang. She went in. It was warm. The smell of coffee. She went to the counter. The woman from yesterday was there. She wore an apron. She saw her. She smiled. Welcome. You came yesterday too, right? Yes. What would you like? Americano. The woman started making coffee. She stood at the counter. She watched the woman. Her hands moved quickly. The bracelet was on her wrist. It was silver, the one she saw yesterday. Her gaze stayed on the bracelet. The woman turned. Here you are. She handed the coffee. She took out her card. She paid. The woman held out the receipt. She didn't take it. She only took the coffee. Thank you. She went to the table. She sat in the window seat where she sat yesterday. She placed the coffee on the table. She put down her bag. Steam rose. She took a sip. She looked at the counter. The woman was doing other work. She was organizing cups. The bracelet on her wrist was visible every time she moved. It sparkled in the light. She watched quietly. A customer came in. The woman took the order. She made coffee. She handed it to the customer. The wrist was visible again. The bracelet was clear. It looked old. The surface was worn. She opened her bag. She looked inside. The bracelet was there. She didn't take it out. She just looked. It was silver. Worn. Similar to the bracelet at the counter. Is it the same? She drank coffee. Her hand trembled. She put down the cup. She took a deep breath. She looked out the window. A car passed. People walked. An everyday scene. She looked at the counter again. The woman was wiping tables. She came toward her. She wiped the next table. She got closer. The bracelet was more visible. A small shape was engraved. Like a star. She touched the bracelet in her bag. She felt it with her fingertips. There was something on the surface. It seemed engraved. A star. A small star. Her breath seemed to stop. Her hand stopped. The woman went to another table. She sat still. She didn't look at the coffee. She looked at the counter. The woman returned to the counter. She was organizing something. She was smiling. Smiling alone. She looked happy. She watched that sight. For a long time. She stood up. She hadn't finished the coffee. Half remained. She gathered her bag. She went to the counter. She put down the cup. It was good. The woman turned. She smiled. Thank you. Please come again. She nodded. She stepped back. Then she stopped. She looked at the woman. The woman also looked at her. Their eyes met briefly. Is there something you need? The woman asked. She shook her head. No. She turned. She went to the door. She pushed and went out. The bell rang. She went outside. Cold wind blew. She stood in front of the cafe. She looked inside through the glass. The woman was visible. She was serving another customer. The bracelet on her wrist sparkled. She stood for a while. She didn't move. She walked to the bus stop. Slowly. Only footsteps could be heard. She hugged the bag tightly. The bracelet was inside. She felt the weight. A weight she hadn't felt before. She took the bus. She sat in the back. She looked out the window. The cafe receded. It became small. It disappeared. The bus ran. She placed the bag on her lap. She held it with both hands. She returned to the apartment. She took the elevator. She got off on the 7th floor. She walked down the hallway. She opened the door. She went in. It was quiet. No one was there. She took off her shoes. She went to her room. She put the bag on the bed. She opened it. She took out the bracelet. She held it in her hand. She went to the window. She held it up to the sunlight. The silver shone. A small star was visible. It was engraved. She touched it with her finger. It was indented. It was old. 30 years old. It was the same. She sat on the bed. She sat holding the bracelet. She looked out the window. The sky was blue. Clouds flowed. A bird flew. She sat quietly, holding the bracelet. She didn't let go. Time passed. Afternoon came. The sun set. She still sat, looking at the bracelet, thinking of that bracelet at the cafe. The bracelet with the same star engraved. The same bracelet. The 7th morning came. She woke up early. The window was bright. The sun was up. A lot of snow had melted. The road was wet. The sky was clear. She changed clothes. She looked in the mirror. She combed her hair. She applied lipstick. Pale color. She took out her coat. She put it on. She packed her bag. The bracelet was still inside as it was. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. She was drinking coffee. She saw her. Going out again? Yes. Her daughter-in-law didn't ask more. She looked at her phone. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She opened the door. She left. She took the elevator. She went down to the 1st floor. She went outside. The air was cold, but warmer than yesterday. There was sunlight. It touched her face. She went to the bus stop. She took the bus. She sat by the window. It was yesterday's road. Familiar. Stores passed. People walked. She got off in front of the cafe. She walked. Inside was visible through the glass window. There were people. Not many. She pushed the door. The bell rang. She went in. It was warm. The smell of coffee. She went to the counter. The woman from yesterday was there. She wore an apron. She saw her. She smiled. Welcome. You came yesterday too, right? Yes. What would you like? Americano. The woman started making coffee. She stood at the counter. She watched the woman. Her hands moved quickly. The bracelet was on her wrist. Silver. The one she saw yesterday. Her gaze stayed on the bracelet. The woman turned. Here you are. She handed the coffee. She took out her card. She paid. The woman held out the receipt. She didn't take it. She only took the coffee. Thank you. She went to the table. She sat in yesterday's window seat. She put the coffee on the table. She put down her bag. Steam rose. She took a sip. She looked at the counter. The woman was doing something else. She was organizing cups. The bracelet on her wrist was visible when she moved. It sparkled in the light. She watched quietly. A customer came in. The woman took the order. She made coffee. She gave it to the customer. The wrist was visible again. The bracelet was clear. It looked old. The surface was worn. She opened her bag. She looked inside. The bracelet was there. She didn't take it out. She just looked. Silver. Worn. Similar to the counter's bracelet. Is it the same? She drank coffee. Her hand trembled. She put down the cup. She breathed deeply. She looked outside. A car passed. People walked. An ordinary scene. She looked at the counter again. The woman was wiping tables. She came this way. She wiped the next table. She got closer. The bracelet was clearer. A small shape was engraved. Like a star. She touched the bracelet in her bag. She felt it with her fingertips. There was something on the surface. Seemed engraved. A star. A small star. Her breath seemed to stop. Her hand stopped. The woman went to another table. She sat still. She didn't look at the coffee. She looked at the counter. The woman returned to the counter. She was organizing something. She was smiling. Smiling alone. She looked happy. She watched. For a long time. She stood up. She hadn't finished the coffee. Half remained. She gathered her bag. She went to the counter. She put down the cup. It was good. The woman turned. She smiled. Thank you. Please come again. She nodded. She stepped back. Then stopped. She looked at the woman. The woman looked at her too. Their eyes met briefly. Is there something you need? The woman asked. She shook her head. No. She turned. She went to the door. She pushed and left. The bell rang. She went outside. Cold wind blew. She stood in front of the cafe. She looked through the glass inside. The woman was visible. She was serving another customer. The wrist bracelet sparkled. She stood for a while. She didn't move. She walked to the bus stop. Slowly. Only footsteps. She hugged her bag. The bracelet was inside. She felt the weight. Weight she hadn't felt before. She took the bus. She sat in back. She looked out. The cafe receded. Got smaller. Disappeared. The bus ran. She put the bag on her lap. Held it with both hands. She returned to the apartment. Took the elevator. Got off on 7. Walked the hall. Opened the door. Went in. Quiet. No one there. She took off shoes. Went to her room. Put bag on bed. Opened it. Took out bracelet. Held it. Went to window. Held it to sunlight. Silver shone. Small star visible. Engraved. She touched with finger. Indented. Old. 30 years old. It was the same. She sat on bed. Sat holding bracelet. Looked outside. Sky blue. Clouds flowing. Bird flew. She sat quietly. Holding bracelet. Didn't let go. Time passed. Afternoon came. Sunset. She still sat. Looking at bracelet. Thinking of cafe's bracelet. Bracelet with same engraved star. Same bracelet. The 8th morning came. She woke up early. The window was bright. The sun was up. She got out of bed. She changed clothes. She looked in the mirror. Her face looked haggard. It showed she hadn't slept. She hadn't slept well last night either. She had looked at the ceiling for a long time. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was waking the children. She sat on the sofa. She said nothing. Her daughter-in-law came out. She saw her. Going out again today? Yes. Her daughter-in-law nodded. She went to the kitchen. She prepared breakfast. She didn't eat. She only drank water. Her daughter-in-law left. The children left too. She was left alone. She went to her room. She packed her bag. She put in the bracelet. She put on her coat. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She left. She took the bus. The same road. She got off in front of the cafe. She pushed the door. She went in. The bell rang. The cafe was quiet. Few customers. 1 or 2 people sitting. The woman was at the counter. The woman from yesterday. She saw her. She smiled. You came again. Yes. Same thing? Yes. The woman made coffee. She stood at the counter. She looked at the woman's wrist. The bracelet was there. Silver. The one with the engraved star. The coffee came out. She received it. She paid. She was about to go to the table but stopped. She stood at the counter. Excuse me. The woman turned. Yes? Your bracelet. It's pretty. The woman looked at her wrist. She smiled. Thank you. It's old. How old? I've had it since I was little. The woman touched the bracelet. She stroked it with her fingers. She held her breath. Was it a gift? I'm not sure. I don't remember. The woman tilted her head. I've had it since childhood, but I can't remember who gave it to me. Her hand trembled. She gripped the coffee cup tightly. I see. Yeah, but I can't throw it away. It seems important somehow. The woman smiled. She nodded. She went to the table. She sat in the window seat. She put down the coffee. Her hand trembled. She placed her hands on the table. Since childhood. She opened her bag. She took out the bracelet. She placed it on her lap. Under the table. Not visible. She touched it with her hand. It was cold. Why did I bring this? She closed the zipper. She pushed the bag back. She looked out the window. The sky hung low. It looked like snow. Wind blew. Tree branches swayed. She came to the living room. She sat on the sofa. She turned on the TV. A morning program was on. A cooking show. A chef was making something. She watched, but couldn't concentrate. The door opened. Someone came in. A middle-aged woman. She wore an apron. She went to the counter. She talked to the woman making coffee. Sujin, did you organize everything yesterday? Yes, Ani. Thanks. I don't know how the cafe would run without you. They both smiled. The middle-aged woman went inside. Sujin remained alone. She wiped cups. She watched quietly. The middle-aged woman came out again. She was holding coffee. She came near the table where she sat. She started wiping the window. She got close to her. Nice weather, the middle-aged woman said. She said it looking at her. Yes, I see you come often. Sujin was happy to have a regular customer. Is that so? Yes. Sujin is kind. That's her nature. The middle-aged woman smiled. She kept wiping the window. She drank coffee. Has Sujin worked here long? No, it's been a year. But she does so well, she's my right hand. Does she live around here? Yes, nearby. She grew up here. The middle-aged woman finished wiping. She looked at her. Take your time. She returned to the counter. She sat at the table. She touched the bracelet on her lap. It had warmed up. From her hand's warmth. She said she grew up here. She drank coffee. Her hand trembled. She put down the cup. She looked at the counter. Sujin was smiling, talking to the middle-aged woman. She looked happy. She took something from her bag. Her wallet. She rummaged inside. A small photo came out. A black and white photo. Old. It was folded. She unfolded it. In the photo was a child. She looked about 5. She was smiling. On her wrist was a bracelet. Silver. With an engraved star. She looked at the photo. Then looked at the counter. She looked at Sujin's face. She looked at the child in the photo. She looked at Sujin again. The eyes were similar. The nose was similar. The mouth was similar. 30 years had passed, but they were similar. She folded the photo. She put it in her wallet. Her hand trembled. She stood up. She hadn't finished the coffee. She gathered her bag. She put in the bracelet. She went to the counter. It was good. Sujin smiled. Thank you. Please come again. She nodded. She turned. She went to the door. Her hand touched the doorknob. She stopped. She looked back. Sujin was wiping cups. The middle-aged woman was talking next to her. Sujin smiled. Brightly. She watched. For a long time. She pushed the door and left. The bell rang. She went outside. The sunlight was warm. She stood in front of the cafe. She looked through the glass. Inside was visible. Sujin was visible. Maybe. She walked to the bus stop. Slowly. She hugged her bag. Inside was the bracelet. The photo. A photo from 30 years ago. She took the bus. She sat in back. She looked out. The cafe receded. She closed her eyes. Sujin's face came to mind. The smiling face. It overlapped with the child's face in the photo. She returned home. She went to her room. She sat on the bed. She opened her bag. She took out the bracelet. She took out the photo. She placed them side by side. On the bed. She looked at the bracelet. She looked at the photo. She looked at the child's bracelet in the photo. They were the same. Silver bracelets with engraved stars. She covered her face with both hands. She breathed deeply. Could it be that child? She looked out the window. The sun was setting. The shadows were long. She sat on the bed, looking at the bracelet and photo. She didn't move. She sat for a long time. Something was connecting. Slowly, quietly connecting. The 9th morning came. She had been awake since dawn. She sat on the bed. She held the bracelet. She looked at the photo. The window brightened. The sun rose. She changed clothes. She looked in the mirror for a long time. She combed her hair. She applied lipstick. Her hand trembled. She applied again. She put on her coat. She packed her bag. She put in the bracelet. She put in the photo too. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. She saw her. She said nothing. She didn't speak either. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She left. She took the bus. The same road. She looked out the window. Stores passed. People walked. The bus stopped. She got off. She walked to the cafe. She stood at the door. Inside was visible through the glass. Sujin was there. She stood at the counter. She put her hand on the doorknob. She paused briefly. She breathed. She pushed the door. The bell rang. She went in. Sujin turned. She smiled. Welcome. You came again today. Yes. Same thing? Yes. Sujin started making coffee. She stood at the counter. She gripped her bag tightly. She looked at Sujin's wrist. The bracelet was there. Silver. It sparkled. The coffee came out. She received it. She paid. She didn't go to the table. She stayed at the counter. Excuse me. Yes? Sujin turned. She couldn't speak for a moment. Her lips were dry. Your bracelet. It's really pretty. Sujin looked at her wrist. She smiled. Thank you. Since when have you worn it? I'm not sure. I don't remember well. Since I was little. Sujin touched the bracelet. She stroked it with her fingers. It has a star engraved. She said. Her voice trembled. Sujin looked at the bracelet closely. Right. A small star. It's amazing, isn't it? It's so worn but the star is clear. Where did you get it? I don't know. I was adopted. When I was little. Her hand stopped. She gripped the coffee cup tightly. Adopted. Yes. When I was 5. So I don't remember much from before. Sujin said calmly. She was smiling. She breathed deeply. The bracelet. Was it from then? Yes. I was wearing it then. So my adoptive parents just left it. Sujin touched the bracelet again. She watched that hand. A small hand. But an adult's hand. A 35-year-old's hand. You grew up well, she said. Sujin tilted her head. Pardon? Nothing. Just. She went to the table. She sat in the window seat. She put down the coffee. Her hand trembled. She placed her hands on the table. She tried to steady her breathing. She opened her bag. She took out the bracelet. She placed it on her lap. She touched it. It was cold. She took out the photo. She unfolded it. There was a child, smiling, wearing a bracelet. She looked at Sujin. She was wiping cups at the counter. She was smiling alone. She looked happy. She looked at the child in the photo. She looked at Sujin. They were the same. The eyes were the same. The smile was the same. My child. The door opened. A customer came in. Sujin took the order. She made coffee. The bracelet on her wrist moved. It sparkled. She looked at the bracelet on her lap. They were the same. A pair. The customer left. It became quiet again. Sujin wiped the counter. She drank coffee. Her hand trembled. The cup made a sound. She put it down. She stood up. She held the bracelet. She folded the photo. She put it in her bag. She went to the counter. Sujin turned. Leaving already? Yes. Please come again. Sujin smiled. She nodded. She looked at Sujin. She looked at her face. She looked at her eyes. For a long time. Stay healthy, she said. Sujin smiled. Thank you. You too, ma'am. She turned. She went to the door. Her hand touched the doorknob. She stopped. She wanted to look back. She didn't look back. She pushed the door. She left. She went outside. Cold wind blew. It brushed her face. She stood in front of the cafe. She looked through the glass. Sujin was visible. She stood at the counter. She was smiling. She stepped back. 2 steps. She walked slowly. The cafe receded. She didn't look back. She only looked ahead. She kept walking. She arrived at the bus stop. She sat on the bench. She placed the bag on her lap. She opened it. She took out the bracelet. She held it in her hand. It was warm. Her hand's warmth had transferred. She was living well. The bus came. She got on. She sat in back. She looked out. The cafe was visible. It became small. It disappeared. She sat holding the bracelet. She didn't let go. She returned home. She took the elevator. She walked down the hall. She opened the door. She went in. It was quiet. No one was there. She went to her room. She sat on the bed. She looked down at the bracelet. For a long time, the star shone. The small star shone, a star engraved 30 years ago. She opened her bag. She took out the photo. She unfolded it. The child was smiling while wearing the bracelet. She looked at the photo. She looked at the bracelet. She placed them side by side. She looked out the window. The sun was setting. The sky was red. Clouds flowed. Birds flew. She sat quietly, holding the bracelet. Now I know. She closed her eyes. She breathed deeply, slowly. The room darkened. The sun had completely set. She sat in the darkness, holding the bracelet, quietly holding it, silently accepting the truth. The 10th morning came. She woke up early. The window was bright. It was a clear day. She sat on the bed. She looked at the bracelet. She looked at the photo. She changed clothes. She looked in the mirror. Her face was peaceful, different from a few days ago. She combed her hair. She applied lipstick. She put on her coat. She packed her bag. She put the bracelet in. She put it in a small envelope. She left the photo as it was. She took out the photo from her wallet. She took out a small note. She picked up a pen. She thought briefly. She wrote, "Thank you for living well." It was a short sentence. She folded the note. She put it in the envelope with the bracelet. She closed the zipper. She came to the living room. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. She saw her. "Going out again today?" "Yes. For the last time." Her daughter-in-law nodded. She didn't ask more. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She opened the door. "Mijong." Her daughter-in-law turned. "Yes? I'll go home tomorrow." Her daughter-in-law was silent for a moment. She nodded. "Yes, mother." She left. She closed the door. She took the elevator. She went down to the first floor. She went outside. The sunlight was warm. She took the bus. She looked out. Thinking it was the last time made everything look different. Stores passed. People walked. An ordinary scene, but special. She got off in front of the cafe. She stood at the door. She looked inside through the glass. Sujin was there. She was serving a customer. She was smiling. She stood for a while. She pushed the door. She went in. The bell rang. Sujin turned. She smiled. "Welcome." "Hello." She went to the counter. Sujin asked, "Americano today too?" "No. I won't drink today." Sujin tilted her head. She opened her bag. She took out the envelope. She placed it on the counter. "I came to give you this." "What is this?" "A gift." Sujin looked at the envelope. She looked at her. "Why? For me?" "Yes. Please accept it." "But, please," she said quietly. Sujin picked up the envelope. It was light. She tried to open it. She held out her hand. "Look at it later, when you're alone." Sujin nodded. She carefully accepted the envelope. "Thank you." She smiled. She looked at Sujin. She looked at her face. She looked at her eyes. She looked at her smile. For a long time, live healthily. "Yes, you too." She turned. She went to the door. She didn't look back. She pushed the door. She left. The bell rang. She went outside. Sunlight touched her face. It was warm. She stood in front of the cafe. She looked back once. Through the glass, Sujin was visible. She was holding the envelope. She looked curious. Live well. She walked slowly. She went to the bus stop. She didn't look back. She only looked ahead. She kept walking. She took the bus. She sat in back. She looked out. The cafe receded, became small, disappeared. She sat quietly. She placed the bag on her lap. It was light. She returned home. She went to her room. She sat on the bed. She opened her bag. The bracelet was gone. Of course. She had given it. Only the photo remained. She took it out. She unfolded it. The child was smiling. The 5-year-old child was smiling brightly. She looked at the photo. For a long time, she touched it with her finger. She stroked the child's face. She put it in her wallet. Carefully, she closed the wallet. She put it in her bag. She stood up. She opened the closet. She started packing. Afternoon came. She finished packing. One bag. Not much. She came to the living room. She sat on the sofa. Her daughter-in-law was in the kitchen. Evening came. They sat at the table. 4 people. Her son was there too. They ate quietly. "You're leaving tomorrow?" her son asked. She nodded. "Yes. I'll drive you." "It's okay. I'll take the bus." "Still, it's fine," she said quietly. Her son nodded. He didn't say more. The meal ended. She went to her room. She lay on the bed. She looked at the ceiling. Tomorrow she would return to Oo County. Return home. to the house where she lived alone. But it was okay, because now she knew where and how her daughter was living. That she was living happily. That alone was enough. She closed her eyes. Sleep came. It was comfortable. The 11th morning came. She woke early. She gathered her things. She came to the living room. No one was there. Everyone was sleeping. She left a note. She placed it on the table. I'm leaving first. Stay healthy. A short sentence. She picked up her bag. She went to the entrance. She put on her shoes. She opened the door. She quietly left. She closed the door. She took the elevator. She went down to the first floor. She went outside. The dawn air was cold. Stars were visible. Stars shone in the sky. She walked to the bus stop. She waited for the first bus. She sat on the bench. She placed the bag beside her. She looked at the sky. The stars were disappearing one by one. Dawn was breaking. The bus came. She got on. She went to the terminal. She bought a ticket for OO County. She sat in the waiting room. She waited. Departure time came. She got on the bus. She sat in back. She looked out. Seoul receded. Buildings became small. They disappeared. They entered the highway. Cars passed. The sky brightened. The sun rose. It was warm light. They drove for 3 hours. They arrived at OO County. She got off the bus. She took a taxi. She went home. The familiar alley appeared. The single-story house was visible. She arrived home. She opened the door. She went in. The smell of dust. The smell of a house empty for days. She opened the window. Wind came in. She went to the living room. She sat on the sofa. She put down her bag. The house was quiet, but comfortable. It was her home. There was a photo on the table. A black and white photo. She wiped the dust. The child was visible, smiling. She looked at the photo. She smiled. She opened her wallet. She took out the photo. The same photo. She placed them side by side. One in the frame, one in her hand. It's okay now. She looked out the window. The streets of OO County were visible. Quiet, peaceful. Winter sunlight came in. It was warm. She sat on the sofa, looking at the photo, smiling, quietly smiling. The house was still, but not lonely. Not anymore. If today's story brought you a bit of comfort, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and turning on notifications, so I can continue sharing heartfelt stories by your side. Wishing you days filled with nothing but happiness.